When you think of the greatest moments in cinema, when you close your eyes, what comes to mind? Perhaps Dorothy opening the door to Oz for the first time. Perhaps the opening of 2001: A Space Odyssey. Adventures, tragedies, friendships, betrayals. Film, no, stories connect us as humans to ideas we have yet to understand, places we have never been or can never reach, people, characters we have never seen. They introduce conflicts that allow us to question morality, meanings, choices that encounter us in real everyday life. Characters can feel real from the way they react, express emotion, just like you and I. We connect with them because they teach us about the human condition. Stories can pass down generations, or they can be created anew by anyone about anything. They can be short, fables, parables, nursery rhymes, even idioms, or they can be grand epics. They can span several renditions, even remakes and reimaginings. They change as we change. They evolve as we see the world in a different light. There is no human condition without stories. There is no civilization, no connection, no grand technological achievements, no lessons to be learned without fiction, without allegories to a new reality that teaches us about our own. Film will survive long past all our lifetimes, and it will continue to inspire new generations without us ever seeing it. But what is the film that connects us on the deepest level? What experience has the most to say about the world as we know it? What has enthralled our civilization more than any piece of fiction ever could? That's right, a Minecraft movie.
Chicken jockey!
This film has enamored me from the moment I was aware of its production to the final credits rolled, and I haven't been able to shake the feeling that there may never be another film like it. I was awestruck by its inspiring visuals that in themselves are a statement. Steve, played by Jack Black, a prolific actor for his iconic roles as Kung Fu Panda, Nacho Libre, and Bowser, was shown entering a portal to the overworld, and I couldn't help but immediately notice his fascination with saying out loud the conditions that surround him. Notice how he announces the authority, the excitement. Despite being new to the world, he doesn't seem fazed by its bizarre nature, but rather enamored by its newfound powers. What this presents is the idea that humanity is malleable to environments and ideas when approaching them with enthusiasm and childlike wonder. While the other characters appeal to be taken aback by the visual disparity between the human world and the Minecraft world, Steve takes the role as the mentor, the knowledgeable figure in this fantasy world. Like Gandalf in The Lord of the Rings, he is the guide. This is a very unique writing decision, as Steve, the main character, the person one plays as in Minecraft, is not the subject of discovery in the film. Rather, Henry, Garrett, Natalie, and Dawn, intriguing, interesting, incredible new characters, are the new faces to this franchise. It was certainly a bold decision to thrust these unfamiliar personalities into the main focus of the narrative. But as we said earlier, stories change, they evolve. One could describe the plot archetype as a hero's journey. But what this really is a story of war, attrition, friendship, brotherhood and sisterhood, morality, and a statement on the ethics of battle and conquest. A statement on the human condition. The opening shot of the movie states loading terrain, the phrase which is displayed in the game itself while creating the overworld. This action blurs the line between film and game, between the audience as a passive spectator and an active force in the changing of the media's actions and consequences. Interestingly enough, the actual opening shot is not of the video game environment, but of the live action shot of Steve as a young boy. Notice how he wears the same teal shirt and blue jeans that Dawn, his iconic figure in the games. It is through this action that we are able to associate the two characters, despite the fact that Black's appearance outside of this detail has relatively little in common with the rectangular figure and darker skin of the traditional model of Steve. This creates an interesting statement on the movement that is whitewashing, or the supplement of characters originally as other ethnicities being casted with white actors to appeal to an American or Western audience that is more predominantly made of Caucasian or Nordic ethnic peoples. Perhaps this casting decision attempted to put the individual audience member in the place of Steve, as would happen in a first-person Minecraft game. Perhaps it is making a statement that Steve's appearance is not what matters, but his personality. Now, immediately, Steve's character takes a deterrence from any Minecraft player. What would tell you is typical of his character: he talks. Steve is silent, like many video game characters. And so, the closer to that of the introduction of dialogue pushes his figure closer to that of a third-person observer of the absurdity of the world, rather than a first-person window that is meant to put little distraction between the audience and the content. In this sense, it contradicts the opening scene, loading terrain. What this juxtaposition does is it asks the audience, who is in control, you or the film? Are you simply a subject of Palladio's cave, at the mercy of whatever the puppeteers decide to show you? Or can you walk out of the theater and decide to play the game itself and free yourself from the dialogue of the movie, from the shackles that it puts you in? Does Jack Black's presence intimidate you? Does it conflict with your vision of Minecraft? Or does this inclusion enhance the experience and provide a fresh perspective that you never would have had otherwise? This dichotomy is present all throughout the film, especially as the movie itself, both intentionally and unintentionally, references the media that comes previous to it in order to create a reaction from the viewer. You see, his first lines, "I am Steve," was one of several quotes that was made famous by the product's trailers, which granted themselves a massive audience all across the internet. Thus, in most theaters, the finalization of these quotes brought an overwhelming feeling of satisfaction and hilarity to audiences worldwide, as we can see from clips like these. This is an incredibly unique phenomenon that this film has been able to create, as it is a brand new product that has not had the time to assimilate in people's nostalgia or be associated with good memories. It is the first time people are seeing this movie, and yet it doesn't feel that way. It feels like a 10-year classic. It feels like everyone is already familiar with it. A Minecraft movie has been able to harness the power of the internet in a way few or no films ever have. This deep understanding of what makes an in-joke funny, of what people connect to as social media creatures, has garnered mass audience praise all across the world. Essentially, the power of a meme cannot be understated. They spread like wildfire. They evoke incredible emotional responses. With this, the film opens and repeatedly draws back to throughout its runtime. We witness the origin of Steve's character, a young boy, again, a rendition of the figure we are not familiar with, and shows his transition into that of an unsatisfied working adult. With this only escape being the mines. It's interesting that, despite this being Steve's origin story, he is portrayed as an older man, as Jack Black himself is in his mid-50s. This then influences his character arc, as he essentially experiences a midlife crisis, which feeds into his desire to escape into an environment of childlike wonder. Now, the narration never explains why he, quote, yearned for the mines, considering that he wasn't aware of the world of Minecraft before entering it. Now, some would consider this lazy writing, but I believe this is a metaphor for how destiny has an ability to arrive towards individuals when they pursue urges that emerge within their personality. Perhaps Steve had a desire to explore the mines specifically because of a feeling of rebellion against the old man blocking the entrance to the area. In that sense, this scene is a commentary on opposing the forces that which oppress your freedom, because more often than not, they are attempting to prevent you from experiencing a form of liberty or power that they find dangerous to their authority. If an authoritative figure tells you not to do something, perhaps there's a reason behind it. Was the old man aware of the fantastical power with which he was guarding? It is never directly stated, but perhaps that isn't even relevant. Either way, his inability to grant Steve the full capacity of his free will as a human being caused Steve to want to see what was inside the mind even more. Steve is able to overcome this obstacle by initially moving in the direction of the guard, but skillfully darting to the other direction to outmaneuver him. This shows how often the older generations will attempt to prevent the younger generations from fulfilling their desires, but do not realize that they no longer have the physical and or authoritative capability to do so. Like in politics or economic movements, youth will eventually rise. He finds his way to the portal to the overworld, which interestingly enough is glowing the exact same color as Steve's shirt, like it was meant to be. Now, you could chalk this up to mere coincidence, but what is being overlooked is this reinforces the theme of destiny and self-fulfilling nature of human will. The jewel itself is the same color, after all, which resonates that Steve, and no one else, was always meant to be the first to uncover the world. He's sucked in, and the story begins. Immediately, Steve has little to no remorse for the natural wildlife creatures of the overworld that we have presupposed as quote-unquote monsters, when they only hunt to devour flesh just like we do with the innocent animals of the plains. For how experienced Steve is in melee combat later in the film, we can assume that he has accumulated a large amount of experience engaging in battle against these monsters. For exactly how long, we are not quite sure. When discovering the mechanisms with which he can enter the game's underworld, he delivers what may be known for generations as one of the iconic lines in cinema history.
Flint and steel. Flint and steel. Flint and steel.
And what makes this even more incredible is he immediately follows this with the Nether. The poise and command with which he identifies these aspects of the world is truly an enamoring experience, allowing for zero doubt on the circumstances that surround his current situation. There is no doubt he is in the Nether. The visual effects on the Pigman army and the main antagonist of the film, Malgosha, are simply breathtaking. There has never been CGI, computer graphic images that have been this detailed, this incredible. There is no comparison. It is here where the conflict begins, as Steve's dog, Dennis, is sent to carry the gem with which allows for travel between the virtual and human world, a calling to never fall for the temptation that is entering the portal. Again, ironically, it is because he leaves this note on the gem, it is this exact desire that causes Henry and Garrett to discover the portal and enter the world against Steve's desires. We return to this theme of destiny, of being unable to deter the fate with which one is cast, exemplified by the fact that the allure of the Minecraft overworld grows stronger, as people do their best to deter away from it. The subsequent human characters represent different demographics within the human race. Henry is a young, impressionable boy, struggling to find his place among society. Natalie is an older girl with responsibilities as Henry's guardian, a situation that burdens her psyche throughout the film. Garrett is a retired professional video game player, unable to fulfill his dreams to the lengths which human greed and desire whisper in his heart. Dawn is a woman who has security and authority in her life, but not the direction, the end goal to lead her to self-fulfillment. These four characters, along with Steve, represent a dichotomy that makes up the human race, the stages of life with which cornerstone our temporary existence. Self-doubt, anxiety, misdirection, regret, escape. These emotions were given to us to steer us as animals from taking the wrong path in life. But ironically, they end up becoming our greatest opponents. As they enter the Minecraft world, these inner conflicts subside to address immediate danger, fear, survival, needing to escape. To live is to win. To breathe another day is enough. Against the likes of skeletons, spiders, creepers, and zombies, they flee and must quickly use their newfound placement abilities to live another day. One aspect I find interesting is how they redesigned some of the mobs. For example, the villagers, chickens, endermans, and spiders look pretty similar to their game counterparts. But the zombies, for example, have fingers now, and the sheep look, slightly different. This design choice allows for a more thrilling chase sequence, and as the approaching threat of the crowd of zombies becomes a larger threat with the presence of opposable thumbs. A genius decision by the designers. How could we have known that with only rectangular block hands without hands, that they would not be as intimidating? Eventually, Steve meets the cast, saves them from the imminent doom of encroaching zombies, and delivers the single most famous line from any previously shown material in this film's catalog. A line that may go down in infamy. Like the birth of Christ, we may measure films by how much time before or after has passed since the first instance of this line being said.
I am Steve.
The line itself is an introduction of Steve's character to the rest of the cast. I am Steve, at least at face value. It also represents Steve's confidence, his self-realization as an entity that can be defined by a single term, Steve. Notice how he didn't say his last name, or how he didn't say something, I am someone named Steve, or I just so happen to be named Steve. No, I am Steve. Breathtaking. The characters travel to the villagers' town, where we get just an absolutely beautiful musical number that actually has quite a dark undertone to it. The song, Lava Chicken, whatever it's called, I don't know. The song surrounds the idea of a chicken being subject to death by oncoming molten lava that is being purposely dropped on top of it in order to sear its body to the point of being edible for humans. Steve repeats these two words several times, lava, chicken. And what this does is it shows his nonchalant attitude, his damn near mockery of the chicken's death. The animal's life was not respected or taken in gratitude, but rather made fun of, almost insulted by the ease with which it was taken. This shows a dark side to Steve's character. He doesn't value all life, rather only which he deems valuable. In this sense, he introduces a moral dilemma on how we create a hierarchy of living beings without even realizing it. Perhaps even a reference to social Darwinism, the socialist movements created in the 1800s. Does Steve truly respect the villagers? Or is he just using them for his own personal gain? Does he have a hierarchy in his mind, a pyramid graph where they land only slightly above the chickens and thus he respects them? This turmoil is an extremely important theme in the film, and I find the questions it poses to the human disrespect for nature and even themselves extremely thought-provoking. The characters are suddenly attacked by pigmen, and we see the inner turmoils of the characters taken place as they display different levels of discomfort in melee combat. Garrett's insecurities manifest in his desire to show the rest of the cast, mostly consisting of women or younger people, how manly he is, by taking out the dominant figure in their crew, that being Steve, and attempting to fight the biggest, strongest pigman soldier. However, Garrett miscalculated. This foe that ironically Steve would have had no problem taking, Garrett struggles against. Garrett ends up getting in his own way, showing how he has actually impeded his own goal of surviving by allowing this male insecurity to come in the way. We see this all the time in real life when people refuse help because they think accepting it would make them a lesser person. In this sense, perhaps Steve is an analogy for Jesus Christ and Christianity, as he offers his help, but people reject it and suffer as a result. Natalie and Dawn's response is initially fear, fleeing the conflict, while Henry's is to fight and save his friends. The three of them eventually join the fight and hold up much better this time than the previous encounter with the zombies. Already, their growth as characters can be seen. And this represents how being thrust into an unfamiliar environment can cause one to struggle and be fearful of failure. But once you have embraced the challenge and work hard to improve your skills will increase and your confidence will grow. It's a very motivational lesson coming from the film that I can appreciate. Steve, Garrett, and Henry fly away while Dawn and Natalie are separated, effectively separating them by gender. It's a very interesting writing choice because this highlights how the male and female mind differ when thrust into conflict and tasked with engaging against unfamiliar obstacles. The men take a detour to secure some diamonds in the mines instead of immediately trying to find the crystal in order to achieve their goal. While the men blackmail each other, delay their goals, and act upon greed instead of securing everyone's safety, the women show empathy for their struggling friends and act to protect them at all costs with urgency. This plot progression therefore attempts to contradict the common societal belief that men are inherently better leaders than women, when in reality, they act upon selfish goals and privilege to advance their own desires. Why, this movie asks, is Steve more knowledgeable of the terrain, resources, and mechanics of the Minecraft world? Well, because he's spent the most time there. He's accumulated the most income and resources, and therefore comes in with a power dynamic in this group and his advantages over the others. This shows how men are often given leadership positions not because they have better leadership qualities, but because they enter situations already ahead of their female counterparts in terms of experience or income, and seize power where it can be taken. Steve and Garrett represent this dynamic, and I applaud the film for upholding such a prominent feminist acknowledgement of male privilege in our society. They enter the mines and have to avoid booby traps set by Steve, which may be a reference to films like Indiana Jones, where similar obstacles take place. If so, this is a very unique and interesting reference, as no other movie, show, or game has ever really referenced Indiana Jones like that. They escape the mines by riding on the explosions of several creepers combusting at the same time. While this may not work very well in the games, as one would just die from the impact of the explosions, I'd like to applaud the movie for reinterpreting the game's physics and allowing for a more interesting action sequence. They make it to the woodland mansion where the crystal is held. As they infiltrate the premises, Henry is tasked with finding the crystal while Steve and Garrett distract them. However, they are eventually caught and forced to fight in a ring. A chicken is placed on the other side of the wrestling arena, initially confusing Garrett, as this is an odd opponent to face. However, a crate slowly lowers overhead of the chicken, releasing a baby zombie on top of it, creating what can only be described by Steve himself.
Chicken drop, chicken drop, chicken drop.
Understandably, this had audiences engulfed in emotion. How can one not stand up and be in awe of the incredible delivery of this line? The subject that was previously a chicken has become completely changed, altered into a new figure entirely. The speed, danger, and overall unthreatening nature of a chicken has been completely turned on its head into a thrilling, mesmerizing opponent that is the chicken jockey. You think back in 2017 when Minecraft added the chicken jockey, a novel idea, a baby zombie riding on a poultry animal to increase its mobility, that they would indirectly have a hand in creating one of the all-time cinematic moments? If only they could have known. They eventually escape after Henry defeats an Enderman, showing just how much this character has progressed. But not before Malgosia intercepts the crystal and completely ruins our character's progress. Garrett sacrifices himself in an act of heroism in order to allow for the others to escape. A complete 180 from his selfish nature that acted as a detriment to the team earlier in the film when the villagers were attacked and he stunned Steve to prove his worth. Now, he has done the opposite. Garrett is a hero, and his arc has concluded. Or so we thought. They woke up in a mushroom house. They can't rest long, however, as the final battle is impending, and Malgosia's army looms over the horizon in order to counter this force. Our characters build an army of golems, like the ones seen in villages, with the size and strength capable of defending against the pigman army. But they alone will not be enough. As the battle begins, Steve heads directly for Malgosia's head, a true symbol of bravery and command for his troops' lives. Truly an incredible fictional character to be represented. He is willing to sacrifice everything, just like Garrett did, if it can secure victory. Dawn summons an army of wolves, showing a clear dichotomy between Steve's disrespect for animals and Dawn's appreciation for their value as living beings, from how she respects them and how they respect her. With this, the film makes its argument for how diversity in one's team can act to outproduce a less diverse force, and how equity and inclusion are in fact important to society. Look at Malgosia's force. They all look the same and act the same, and there's a reason for that. If they attempt to show individuality to break from the mold, she suppresses it, like an extreme authoritarian government where assimilation to the societal norm is the ultimate goal. In our protagonist's group, however, different types of troops from golems to wolves to people, are used to fight the army. Their ability to complement each other's strengths is what allows them to achieve victory. This progressive, extremely political message that is very obvious in the film is quite admirable. And I applaud the producers of the film for not shying away from commenting on the socio-political state of the world as we know it. But as Henry is in peril in the battle, falling off the giant portal as all hope seems to be lost, Garrett is revealed to be alive and saves him through his aerial craft. This may be one of, if not the greatest plot twist in film. No, in storytelling history. No one could have anticipated that Garrett was somehow alive, and yet it makes perfect sense in hindsight. Now, does the film explain in great terms how he survived the onslaught of TNT monsters with just a water bucket? No, but it doesn't have to. It allows the audience to use their imagination and interpret the action in their own ways. In this sense, it's a phenomenal storytelling tactic. And I just feel bad knowing that no other film will ever be able to subvert the audience's expectations like this one has. The battle ends with the retrieval of the crystals and a final fight between Steve and Malgosha. In her weakened state, she attempts to deceive Steve by egging him to come closer to say a final message to him. While in reality, she is trying to lure him into striking distance to stab him with a knife. Steve, however, is not fooled by this, even when the tactic is used multiple times. This incredible battle of wits and mental strategy cannot be possibly rivaled by even the greatest mystery, detective, or war films, as they could not dream of achieving this much battle strategy or deception within dialogue. The characters eventually make their way to the portal to leave. Steve initially insists on staying in the overworld. However, he's eventually convinced to rejoin the real world. This is an incredible conclusion to his character arc, capping one of the all-time legends for any fictional figure humanity has ever created. He starts in the real world, finds his fictional escape, but realizes that it is a fleeting feeling once he realizes that the true human connection is between other people. Greater than the tales of Hercules, more adventurous than figures like Luke Skywalker, more enchanting than the tale of Dorothy, more inspiring than Superman. That is a Minecraft movie. It comments on the now, yet it represents the eternal. It engages the audience, and yet it questions the critic. We may never see a film like it ever again. Or, rather, it may inspire cinema for decades, nigh centuries to come. And we may see art as we know it mold itself around the movie, to which we can visibly pinpoint the exact moment in history before and after a Minecraft movie, and how it shaped our society forever. Okay. Enough of that. Okay. Yeah, it was fun. I liked it. I saw it with my friends. Shout out Howie, Michelle, and Kathy. Yeah, she got a TNT block popcorn bucket. Yeah, that was fire. It was expensive though. I honestly think it's a good movie because it's funny and it embraces its silliness. Like genuinely, I think if anyone who's dogging this movie for being unserious kind of has a broom up their ass. Like, have fun. It's a fun time. If you think it's garbage, that's fine. It kind of is, but I understand, but I'm happy to be enjoying it and making the longest video I've ever made. All right, that's all. Like and subscribe. Would love you for that. And bye.